to season 3 of HR Secrets. If you're new to the series, welcome. We're happy you can join us. My name is Ashley, and I'm this year's VP of External Relations and your host for season 3, episode 1. HR Secrets is HRSA's podcast series where we look into the different trends and aspects of HR to provide students with more knowledge in the HR industry. Now, I'm very excited for today's episode because today's topic was actually inspired by one of our previous guests, Katie Stargarter. She explained to us while we were organizing season 2, episode 3, that people and culture is just another name for human resources overall. It's not a specialization. And it turns out it looks to be the future of HR too. So with this in mind, I wanted to explore the idea of people and culture, the new HR. And Katie, if you happen to be watching this, thank you for your insights. And to the rest of our audience, make sure you stick around till the end to meet some of the newest faces in HRSA and to find out more about our upcoming events. Anywho, I'm happy to welcome Andrea Adams, HR consultant at HR West Consulting and the creator and host of the HR ShopTalk podcast, to HR Secrets to discuss this topic. Hi, Andrea. How are you doing?
I am good, Ashley. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good, thanks. Awesome. Now, before we get into things, Andrea, could you please introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a bit about your journey in the HR industry?
Right. So I gather this is a nice SFU podcast. So I am an SFU grad in HR. I'm not going to say how long ago that was. And I, so while I was at school, I did the co-op program, and so I had a variety of jobs in the co-op program, and some of those were really formative, actually. And then subsequent to that, I went to work at the Smelter and Trail, which was a great experience. They were doing some amazing and cutting edge HR stuff, particularly around performance management or performance improvement. I know it gets a bad rap, but if you do it well, which they did, it's pretty effective and pretty powerful. So I was there, but then I decided that I wanted to be working in industries that were more, socially impactful, environmentally impactful. So I went and worked in public transit, and I did public transit for a while, HR public transit for a while. Somewhere in there, I moved to Calgary and worked in municipal government in Calgary doing HR, and moved into a business partner role doing, all kinds of, performance management, handling disciplining grievances, advising on attendance, all of that kind of thing. And then I moved into a non-HR role, which in the end is really applicable to HR, was doing customer experience kind of stuff and measuring the customer experience, which is certainly applicable to HR. And more lately, I've been working as a HR consultant, and I have my YouTube channel, HR ShopTalk, where we talk about all things HR. It's targeted towards early-ish HR professionals, although I know I do stray into some of the more sophisticated kind of topics where you talk a little bit more about the skills and the soft skills and the nuances of doing HR, because I think a lot of our success in HR is dependent on our effectiveness at some of those nuances. So does that about cover my journey? Here I am.
I think so. No, that's a great backstory. And now we're all, up to date. But yeah, we're so excited to have you on today.
Yeah, well, thanks. I hope that wasn't too long of an introduction to myself.
Oh no, that's okay. We love to hear more. But yeah,
Okay.
that's awesome. So yeah, today's discussion is going to revolve a lot around, this concept of people and culture. And so just to, get us started, could you explain what people and culture is?
So people and culture is one of the new names for HR, for human resources. And but it's one of many, honestly. There's lots. There's HR is still probably, I would say, the most common. People and culture is definitely getting more culture. Sometimes it's just people. Other times it's human capital management, which really I don't like that one at all. It's worse than HR. Talent management, sometimes they'll just call us this blanket term of talent management. Talent management can often also just refer to recruitment and recruitment related activities. there's employee experience, which I don't know what I think of that one. But you know what? I'd have to, I think I don't like that one as much because HR isn't just about the employee experience, but I'll get to that. There's employee success, which I do like. And people operations is another one. I'm not sure what I think about that one, but yeah. So there's a whole variety of names. The two most common probably are people and culture and HR. Yeah.
Okay. And why do you think that people and culture is one of the most widely used names for HR, as opposed to, just calling your department's talent management or, payroll and benefits?
Probably because it fairly effectively captures what we do. So HR is always dealing with the people. We are stewards, not responsible for so much as we're stewards of the culture. And we spend a lot of time thinking, have a lot of expertise in culture. And so it really does capture a lot of what we do and what our focus is. Human resources can, has this kind of, it has a bit of a negative connotation, like HR, like people are automatons or something, and their resources, they're there to be used, and it's a really one-sided process. So I think in some organizations, we're moving away from that. Human resources, it's been like that forever. And you can still do great HR under the title of human resources, or great people in culture, have great people in culture practices under that title. But I think that's moving away from that idea of us as people being resources towards something that more accurately captures what our employees are, which is people, is a lot of the reason we're moving more. Well, some organizations are moving away from that title and towards something like people and culture.
Interesting. No, that's a really, insightful way to put it. And I know that pretty much covered our next question, which was, what kind of gives human resources like that negative connotation. But I just wanted to follow up on that and ask, in your opinion, do you think, or in your experiences too, do you find that the term human resources kind of pushes people away from wanting to, pursue something like that, as opposed to, roles and people and culture specifically?
It probably does. Like, people and culture definitely is a more appealing title, isn't it? Like, and it's more progressive, warmer, more reflective of, more aligned of the around social trends, which is towards, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but which is towards more of a human centric view of organizations and in the relationship between organizations and their employees. And so I do think that people and culture is a more attractive title, especially for people, for younger people who are looking to get into the field. However, when you need a job, most of us will likely also just, apply for those HR jobs and hope for the best.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. That people and culture does have, I don't want to say a nicer ring to it, but something about it just,
Yep.
works my ear a little more. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it does. It totally
yeah.
does. Yeah.
And
If I
on
were in
that,
charge of an HR department, which is a consultant, I'm not, I might give some strong consideration towards renaming my HR department people and culture. Yeah.
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's great advice for those departments out there. But yeah, on that note, what makes a good company culture in the first place?
Oh goodness, there's so many things. The, the list could be so long. So yeah, so there's just so many qualities to a good culture in some organizations, and it's going to depend from one organization to another. Um, what constitutes a good culture in, say, the cannabis industry, which is one industry in which I've consulted, is going to be quite different than what constitutes a good culture in the mining industry, which I have also worked in, versus government. It's all going to be the cultures of each of those types of organizations, and what makes a good culture is going to be different. What I would say about some things that I think we all want are where there's psychological safety. That is something we talk about a lot. So can you come to work and be your authentic self? Can you come to work and share your ideas and your thoughts without getting shot down in a mean way, I guess? I mean, sometimes our ideas just can't go anywhere because they don't fit with whatever the strategy is. But how those ideas get shot down or saved for later is an important aspect of culture. A good company culture is going to have a lot of workplace involvement where employees are invited to share input. It doesn't mean that every bit of input can be used, because it can't. If each one of us at an employee, let's say there's 100 employees at a company, and each one of us has 3 good ideas a year, that's a lot of ideas that would take some resources to implement. In most cases, they can't all be implemented, but how are they considering those ideas? Are they interested in the conversation? Or are you just getting shot down out of hand? And I mean, that's a terrible feeling. Another thing about good workplace culture is work-life balance. Are they actually encouraging true work-life balance? Most organizations are going to say they do, but not all of them actually do. They'll say, yeah, we encourage work-life balance, but then they, get angry when you say that, well, no, I can't work extra hours today because I've got to take my kid to the doctor, or my parents are in town, or whatever the reason is, right? Or you don't even have to have a reason. Maybe you've got a hobby and you just want to, indulge in that hobby. So, do they walk the talk when it comes to work-life balance? That's something. Can you have true friends at an organization? Or is there just so much gossip and negative kind of feeling in the air? That's indicative of a work life or of an organization culture that isn't great. And that also relates for sure to psychological safety. Transparency. How much does an organization actually share about what's going on? And I know it's challenging for organizations sometimes to share all the bits and pieces about what's going on, but are they transparent when employees ask? I mean, do they have a good mission, vision, and values that aligns with you? And for different organizations, this is going to vary widely. The mission, vision, and values of a mining company is going to be very, very different than the mission, vision, values of a cannabis company. Back to that example. So but for prospective employees, you might want to look at those things to assess whether or not those align with you. Diversity is another big one. And when you're looking at a diversity, you don't want to just see that they've got the diversity statement. That's a start on their job postings. But can you see evidence that there's a trickle up effect, that there's diversity at leadership levels of the organization? That's a sign that that there is actually some true diversity. I mean, the list of aspects of culture that you might be interested in as an individual is really long, and I could talk about all of those. I think in the end, some of the most important ones are how they support work-life balance. Doesn't mean that you're never going to work extra hours, but how do they actually take action on that? And psychological safety. I think those are some of the most important aspects of culture. Oh, and mission, vision, values that, you should be considering.
For sure. No, I definitely agree. And I know we touched on this like during our coffee chat. It was like, you know, you usually see these little hints and aspects of a company, in the job descriptions that they write and whatnot. But how can job seekers, you know, discover this good culture, I guess, more in depth?
Yeah, that's tricky. It is tricky, not gonna lie. So some clues to discovering whether or not an organization actually has a good culture. So I would go on the website and look, start there, look for their mission, vision, values. Is that clear? Is that laid out? Does that create a good vibe for you? Do you like it? Do you align with it? That's a start. Look at Glassdoor or whatever, wherever you can find reviews about an organization. Those are relevant for sure and informative. If you see negative comments, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world, but it might just be a clue of some questions you want to ask in the interview. And that's the next part. Ask questions in the interview. If you can understand, and some of this it's easier to say than actually do, but if you can understand what aspects of a culture are important to you, maybe you want to ask about mission, vision, values. How does that impact the way work is done at your organization? I bet a lot of HR people would be challenged to answer that question, but you can ask that question. How are, like, to get at psychological safety, how does your organization deal with new ideas? How do how do you receive new ideas, and respond to those? How are you ensuring psychological safety? And then you can just pretty directly ask questions about work-life balance. What's the policy on work-life balance? What does that look like in practice? And these are some questions you can ask at the interview. Another thing, and probably the best way of understanding an organizational culture, is ask these questions of somebody who works or worked at the organization. So do some information interviews. A lot of this is it's pretty time consuming. And that's why so many people say that you should target a handful of organizations. Don't take a shotgun approach with your resume and send it everywhere. Pick those few organizations that you want to work for, if you can, and do some in-depth investigation of those organizations to see if it's going to be a fit for you.
For sure. Yeah, no, I do find that, doing those types of informational coffee chats with just people who have experience with those companies is definitely really helpful. So yeah,
you can learn so much.
For sure. Yeah. And just to get our audience thinking about the future now, what do you envision the future of people and culture to look like?
This is one of my favorite topics, and I think my YouTube channel actually gives me maybe some unique insight, because I'm talking to HR leaders all the time about so many different aspects of HR, and excuse me, some that ideas that come up more often than others are maintaining that business focus. So one of my guests, who's pretty passionate about this, kept saying that HR is not a social service. We're not. HR is not a social service. We're there to support the business and ensure business success. That doesn't mean we have to do it on the unfairly off the backs of our employees, but that we have to remain business focused and contributing to the business goals. There are limitations to that. There's legal limitations, human rights. I mean, it's again, I think it's that socially conscious, people focused way of delivering business results, but it's still delivering business results. So maintaining that business focus, I think HR needs to continue getting better at numbers. I don't know. Ashley, I have a question for you. Do you know how much people analytics, metrics courses, or any of that are you guys doing as part of your curriculum?
Oh, it's hard to say because I'm studying communication right now, but I do know, that BD does have quite a wide range of, different courses, that cover HR type aspects. I've heard about, courses on organizational psychology and whatnot.
What about the numbers? That's
Numbers.
my curiosity. Anyways, whatever. It doesn't matter. I just believe that HR has to get better at that. So we
Mhm.
have to get better at metrics, and it's not commonly and well known, but there are standards out there for HR metrics. So that's one. That's where it starts. Then we have to be able to, deliver intelligent reports about those metrics. There's also standards out there about that. Then it gets quite complicated, and then you really need in-depth skill to do people analytics. So people analytics are going to take a business problem, they're going to marry it up with HR data and be able to predict or understand which levers in HR around the people we can pull so that we are affecting the business outcome in the way we want. And the software around that is getting better all the time, I'm told. And but here, as we become HR leaders, we may need to hire the people who can do that level of number crunching and understand data in the depth that we need to there. But if you have opportunities, if I can throw some advice out here, if you have opportunities to be studying numbers, take it. It will accelerate your career for sure. So numbers, the next thing I think is being nimble. HR is in a funny place where we are limited by a lot of law. So, we must be compliant with all the laws. And yet business is changing so fast, new products, new skill sets required, and HR needs to support that. And so we have to be both. We have to be both. We have to make sure our organizations are compliant and nimble. It's possible. And there's ways of doing that. And we just have to be mindful of those. And while I started out this by saying business, we have to be business focused, we also have to be people focused. There's a growing sense of, corporate accountability around environment, social, and governance, and our staff, and so we have to manage that, and I think manage that, be aware of that, and create those organizations that have more social consciousness. That's what a lot of the workers of the future, I think your generation, are looking for. I heard a stat that Gen Z is the first generation that prioritizes organization mission over compensation. Doesn't mean they don't care about compensation, but that the organization's mission is super important to them. And in the same way, HR sometimes being put in charge of environmental, social, and governance reporting. And that's that sense of social accountability of organizations, and proving that you are delivering. And so it's just this sense of delivering business results, but in a socially conscious kind of way. And so I think that's also part of the future of HR. I think that was it. Those four things probably. Business focus, get better at the numbers, remain nimble amidst a lot of stable things like laws, and foster that a socially conscious but effective organization.
For sure. No, those are definitely great points to keep in mind, and that's awesome. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for my questions. But before we end off, how can our listeners and viewers contact you if they'd like to reach out?
By all means, reach out. I invite it. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I should be pretty easy to find, Andrea Adams. I also, of course, have the YouTube channel, HR ShopTalk, which you can get to from, you can Google it, or you can get to from my LinkedIn page.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Awesome. Well, there you have it. This wraps up season 3, episode 1 of HR Secrets. Andrea, I want to thank you so much for your time and for sharing your insights into people and culture. And we just really appreciate and enjoy having you on the podcast. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. And I look forward to listening to it myself.
Awesome. And to our audience, thanks so much for sticking around this far. We really hope this episode gave you guys a better idea of this modern take on HR. Now, I said that we'd be meeting some new faces before the end of today, so I'd like to welcome our new hosts for the rest of HR Secrets Season 3, Amira and Amara. Hi, you two. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing great as well.
Awesome. And could you both quickly introduce yourselves, maybe tell us your year, what you're studying, and what you're excited for this year with HRSA?
Hi, I'm Amira, and I'm a second year in business. And for this year, I'm excited to work on projects with my team and to build relationships with my fellow HRSA members.
And my name's Amara. I'm in my first year of business, and I'm super excited for all the socials that the internal relations team will be hosting, as well as all the events we have planned.
Amazing. And I've invited you both here today to share a bit on HRSA's upcoming events. And so what can you guys tell us?
Okay, so without spoiling too much, we are the organizing team behind HRSA's first ever Winter Welcome Social.
This is going to be a really fun game night where you can meet new people and get to know a little more about HRSA and what we do and the HR industry. There's going to be icebreakers, games, and food, and students are going to be working in teams to gain points and win prizes.
Mm-hmm. And this event is going to be coming up in December, with the date and details being released soon. The event is not only for BD students and is open to everyone from all faculties. Please stay tuned to our socials, and we hope to see you guys there.
So exciting. So everyone, don't forget to follow us on our social media channels to be the first to know when registration opens for Winter Welcome. We hope to see you there. But anyway, thanks again for listening and have a great rest of your day. We also want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Goldbeck Recruiting, SVBD School of Business, CBHR, BC and Yukon, SFSS, HR West Consulting, BD, AGL Glazing Incorporated, and Van City. Without their support, our events and initiatives could not be hosted successfully. Please visit our website if you're interested in learning more about them. Thank you.